Well, here we go. Welcome to another episode of JC Unplugged. And I'm so excited to have my dear friend, Marcus Deegan, on the show. Marcus, how are you, buddy?
JC, how long have we known each other for now, brother?
When did you come to the States?
I came to the States in 2001.
So I think I probably met you in 2005. Holy smokes.
See?
Wow. So you came here when you were 1 year old.
I came here when I was 31.
31. What was that like for you growing up in Australia? I never talked to you about your childhood and being in Australia. But wait, let me backstep. So Marcus Deegan came here to the States. You were with Thunder from Down Under. You were the host of Thunder from Down Under. We'll get into all of that. And now you have the Marcus Deegan Show, one of the number one podcasts out there in the nation. You focus pretty much all on UFC and MMA on the podcast?
Pretty much. That's like 90% of it, but I kind of delve into like the paranormal and I like to speak to entertainers as well, sometimes in the adult industry. And I kind of go all genres, but primarily it's combat sport.
Back to my first question for you, Marcus. What was that like, your childhood in Australia? What was that like growing up? Because as a kid, my concept of Australia is Crocodile Dundee, Men at Work. That's like my concept of Australia. What was it like for you growing up?
So obviously I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so it was a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere than it is this day and age. It's funny because a lot of the most common questions that I get asked about Australia is about the animals and what was it like growing up and living with all those animals that can kill you. I suppose for me, it was just a way of life. Even when I went to school, we could go barefoot. So I would walk to school barefoot. We would wear no shoes at school. So it was a great time to grow up in Australia because fantastic weather, laid back people, incredible food. And growing up in the 70s and 80s was such a great time. So it was a really awesome experience for me living in a country like Australia because it was really freeing and very relaxed. So if I could say what my childhood was like, it was definitely a relaxed atmosphere and a very freeing kind of place.
How was it then in comparison to growing up here in the States? Because we're kind of in that same age gap right there, both Gen X. I look back at my childhood, 80s. I got MTV. I've got He-Man. I've got G.I. Joe. I've got the WWF. I've got Hulk Hogan. I've got Roddy Piper. That's my childhood growing up. Then I'm getting into the 90s and getting into grunge music and a whole different genre of music. Was that stuff popular in Australia, or did you have different set of cartoons and music that you're listening to?
So Australia is a very Americanized place. So I grew up with Happy Days and MASH, Laverne and Shirley, those type of shows, and then branched into like Bruce Lee movies and Star Wars and War of the Worlds. Um, by the time the WWE came in, I was a little bit older for that, but I had Stretch Armstrong and collected Star Wars figures and Rock and Robots and I had I can't remember what you call it now. That bike that had three wheels and you could spin on it and slide on it.
Your big wheel. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
We had slime, so pretty much the same. However, like in Australia, we only had four TV channels. And I remember having a black and white TV growing up. Geez, I'm really showing my age now. But it was pretty much the same kind of thing, I'd say, as how you grew up. Because as I just mentioned, Australia is definitely very Americanized, but also there was Australian TV shows as well. You probably don't really know any of them. Uh, Kingswood Country, Neighbours,
Was Neighbors like Friends, or was that a different style of show?
sort of like Friends. Yeah, sort of like Friends, but just very, very bottom of the barrel, low grade kind of TV show. But we didn't have much choice back then. So we had a show like you guys have got MTV. We had Countdown. So it was very, very similar, but different at the same time.
I was the same way growing up as a kid. We had our CBS, we had our ABC, we had our NBC, and the turn dial, and then he went to the U for the UHF channels here in the States. So we'd get a couple of the local stations as well. And it wasn't for me until my grandmother had cable in the 80s. So it was always a treat to go to my grandparents' house because they had cable TV, which was just huge. But we didn't get cable in my house till like 1990, 1991 is my parents finally splurged to get cable TV. And that's when MTV and everything else just took over my world. But yeah, we didn't have cable until I was till the 90s for me.
One thing that I really used to see on TV back in Australia that used to fascinate me about America is in Australia, we had our milk in glass bottles that were delivered to the front door. I always saw America had milk in plastic bottles. And I always wanted to try it so bad. And the other thing that I always wanted to try that I used to see in movies was you used to have the Chinese food in these cardboard boxes. They still have them to this day with the little red Chinese sign on the front. And I was always fascinated by that. I never really thought that I'd be able to get to America. It seemed like such a far place away. And we grew up on American movies and things like that. So it just seemed like a different world to us. So when I eventually did get to come over here, I soaked in every bit of Americana that I could.
Was it a Thunder from Down Under that brought you here to the States? And if so, how did you hook up with Thunder from Down Under?
So I joined Thunder from Down Under when I was 27 back in 1996. And then we primarily toured around the world for about 5 years. So we were a touring show. We would do like a week in Germany and then 5 days in Amsterdam. And then we'd go over to Paris and do 3 shows. And then we'd run back to Belgium and do a week there. And then we do Canada and the UK, Scotland, England, Ireland, go to Taipan. Then we go over to all these different places. America, we would do Reno for 2 weeks, and then we would come and do Las Vegas for 2 weeks. So in the beginning, it was just a short-term thing. But then when we came back in 2001, we ended up getting the residency. It actually did start, well, Thunder from Down Under started off at the Stardust Hotel. That's where we used to
Was it
perform.
real? Okay, sure, yeah.
And then after we, came back for our residency, we're at the New Frontier for about maybe 3 or 6 months. I can't really remember. It's been a minute. And then we got the residency at the Excalibur, and I was there for like 20 years.
So it started in the 90s. I feel like I remember when Thunder first started to take off, like seeing it like on Entertainment Tonight or something. It was like a national news story, like the Thunder from Down Under, the sexiest guys from Australia, and thinking, what a catchy name that is, not knowing that years later I'd be really close friends with one of their main stars. But I just remember hearing about it and this rumbling of these Australian guys that were just studs. So the whole thing, that whole concept just started then in the 90s?
Yeah. So it started, I believe, in 1993 and just blew up in Australia and New Zealand. And then I think the whole Australian concept is really attractive to the Americans. They just love the accent. They love hearing about the country. And it kind of became a phenomena over here to where it shot us to a level of celebrity that male strippers don't normally get. You guys had the Chippendales.
Mm-hmm.
Australia had Thunder from Down Under. And then when we came over here, we just blew up, and it was just an insane ride. And I just couldn't believe uh I don't like to say celebrity because it sounds a little bit cringy, but the celebrity that we had over here was just unbelievable.
Well, you guys were, I mean, I'm not sure what the stats are now, but I remember when it first started selling out. We were doing 2 shows a night. Almost every show was sold out, packed house.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, a lot of people don't realize how much hard work went into that when you're doing 2, and then we went to 3 shows a night.
Three
Uh,
shows a
yeah,
night?
7, 9, and 11, and
Whoa.
selling out every show. And when you're doing that, and back in those days, I was the only host, I was the only MC, so I was working every single show, and so it was very straining on, mentally, on the body, and you know what it's like, JC, when you're performing all the time, you've got to be a performer. You've got to be out there, happy, sad, injured, sick. It doesn't matter. You've got to go out there and do your thing. But being in that show taught me so much about entertainment and about professionalism, stage presence, public speaking. So it was a real blessing for me because it has helped me in my later years with, the different businesses and accomplishments that I've been able to do.
That's something I admire about you, and I try to pick up little nuances from you. Your stage presence and your energy too, because I've seen you. We've done some events, and hey, how's it going? And then the lights go on, and you, no matter what's going on in your world, you're able to turn it on like a professional and go out there and entertain the crowds. And I admire that about you. That's a talent to be able to do that.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. And I think it comes from um, repetitive consistency, doing it every single night. You have to get better. And when you did it for as long as I did, like I was to this day still the longest standing performer in Thunder from Down Under. No one did as many years as I did. You know what I mean? I started in my, mid to late 20s and finished in my early 50s. So it was it was just an amazing ride, and I miss it to this day. You know, there's no feeling like getting out on that stage in front of, for instance, we would go to Europe and we would have like 2,500, 3,000 girls in the audience. And even before I
Stars.
said it, it's kind of rock star status. Even before I would say anything on that microphone, after that opening routine finished, and I would walk out onto that stage, and you got 3,000 girls just screaming for you in like you're the president or something like that, for lack of a better term. There's no other feeling like it, and it's very hard to top that feeling. And that was definitely a fear of mine once I had finished the show. I'm like, how am I ever going to be able to experience this kind of euphoria that I would get from performing on stage with Thunder?
Well, the podcast, you're a very successful podcast, but it's a different kind of reaction. There's something when you're on stage and you say something or do something and you get that immediate reaction from a crowd in front of you is different than, you're getting a reaction from your fans in your podcast. You're just not seeing that. You're not feeling that. Would you, did you guys have groupies?
There was we didn't like to use the term groupies. We used to like to use the term fans, because these girls would travel and follow us everywhere. Some of them were 10, 15, 20 years standing. I remember, and I could name off a lot of them. There was one lady, her name was Franny, and she went to something like 500 and something shows, and she would be at Thunder from Down Under, 2 or 3 times a week. Uh, in the end, once she eventually passed away, we even dedicated a little, where she would always sit. We put a little plaque on the table. But she was an older woman, but there would be girls that would travel around Europe, and I would be on stage and I'd be like, hang on a minute, didn't I just see you in Germany? And then we go to a different country, and I'll be like, I'm like, they're out there again. These girls spend all this money to travel around and follow us. So it was a really endearing thing, and it really made you feel special. But yes, we did have a lot of groupies, and obviously being in that industry gave you the opportunity to how do I say it? You know, go to the candy shop and eat whatever you want nightly, sometimes 3 or 4 times a night. So it was
Whoa.
for a young single guy, I would recommend it to anyone, because it was the best time. Now, I've been with my partner for 12 years now,
Yes.
and I wouldn't change that for the world. However, there's probably a lot of stories that I could tell you that we actually probably can't say on here. But
Exactly, exactly. We're reading in between the lines, and yeah, and you're a handsome, sexy guy. Here we are in the '90s, in your 20s. Life is wild, and you're going and performing in front of thousands of ladies a night, and some of those ladies there in their bachelorette parties and stuff. Uh, where, how do I ask this without crossing lines? But ladies who go there for their bachelorette parties,
yeah,
would the brides do anything questionable that maybe the groom might be upset with learning about after the fact?
100%. It's funny because if you've ever been to, say, for instance, a female review, so
Uh huh.
you're a bunch of guys sitting in the audience watching something like Fantasy, or if you go to, the Spearmint Rhino is a little bit different, but I'm just using it as a comparison. Guys are very well behaved. You go to a Thunder from Down Under show, all bets are off. When you've got 20 bachelorettes that are pounding the champagne, sitting in that crowd, watching these guys who are just in impeccable shape,
Hmm.
doing their thing, it's something that you've never seen before. It's fascinating. It's funny. It can be a little dangerous at times. I remember one girl chasing one of the guys around with a pair of scissors trying to cut his thong off. You know what I mean? Thumbs and fingers going in places where they shouldn't go. Um, you know, the guys would bring the girls up onto the stage, and the bachelorette would have their moment, and I would see the bachelorette just trying to kiss one of the performers, like a kiss, and I'm thinking, man, and the mother-in-law's in the audience cheering it on, by the way. You go, girl. So yeah, man, there was some amazing
Were you
experiences.
the one that was telling me that you would get scratches and stuff? You would finish the show and you would have like, why do I have scratches on my chest?
Scratches on the chest, handprints on the butt, phone numbers in the pocket. It was a
Really?
nightly thing, getting followed in my car, driving home, and I'd see the taxi, and I'd be like, pull up at a set of lights, and I'd be in my old truck at the time. And I'd hear screaming and yelling. I'd wind the window down. It's like 5 of the girls are at the show. Marcus, hang on a minute, you can't follow me home. But yeah, man, it was probably one of the greatest segments of my life. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to be in there for as long as I did, because it is a young man's game and there is a limited time that you get to be in that show. Fortunately, I was the host, so it gave me a little bit of an extended period. But yeah, man, I miss it. Sometimes I'll flick through my old photos and I'll be like, oh, man, I miss it a lot. I really do.
You should write a book. I mean, I think they can make a movie out of it. But I think you should write a book, because
Yeah, I was
you
going
and I
to
have
write a
talked about
book.
some of the tales that have gone on, and we're keeping this clean for everyone. But I think you could write a book, definitely a screenplay or something.
Well, I think that the stories that I can't tell would make the book go viral. However, I think that they would put a cease and desist on me, because it could it could ruin a lot of marriages and reputations. But yeah,
Just don't
man.
name any names. Are you kidding me?
All right. Yeah. No. Exactly. But I mean, had you ever seen the show, JC? Did you ever come and see it?
I feel like I have. I feel like when I was with the radio station, we did like a ladies' night kind of deal. I went there with some listeners and brought some listeners there. So I believe I've seen that. I have seen Magic Mike, and I've seen bits and pieces of Chippendales.
Yeah.
And all you guys are so. Do you guys all get along, by the way, or because all you guys are so sweet?
So back in the day, Magic Mike wasn't here. It was basically Thunder from Down Under and Chippendales. And uh, contrary to what people think, we were actually all really good friends and really
Yeah.
close. We'd all hang out, and we would all party together, and we would prank each other, and we would have competitions, and I became best friends with a lot of those guys, and who I'm still friends with to this day, who are no longer in the industry. And actually, I had a couple of them on the podcast, and we were reminiscing on our old days in the show, and just the effect that it has on guys when they actually leave, because a lot of guys don't prepare for afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, as I said, the high is so high that when you finish it, the low can be really, really difficult to adapt to going back to normal life. And it was something that I struggled with for many years, trying to find my place, trying to know who I was, because I was always the crazy Australian host from Thunder from Down Under, Marcus Deegan. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I knew of myself. I mean, you can imagine from in your 20s, right through growing up through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and into your 50s. That's who you are. That was embedded in me. So I had to kind of completely change my identity and who I was. And that was hard to work out at 50.
I feel like you are always evolving. And I want to get into your transition from Thunder to where you are right now with the podcast and everything else. But I want to talk about, too, the Michael Jackson tribute time that you had in your life, and also the Conor McGregor. So how did you get into becoming a Michael Jackson tribute artist? I'm not sure if you still do it, but I've seen you dressed up as Michael Jackson, and oh my God, it is Michael Jackson. How did you start doing that?
Because the first album I ever had in 1973 was a Jackson 5 album. And I kind of, I want to say I was obsessed with him as a performer. And it was something that, I always loved. And it's a little bit hard to do it now because I've got the
I was
beard.
just thinking, I got the beard, yeah.
Yeah, the beard kind of doesn't make it look as authentic as it did. But I would do a little Michael Jackson number in the show. At the end of Thunder from Down Under, I would do my little segment where I would dance a bit, and then I would bring the old lady up onto the stage, and we would do a little lap dance thing. But I would cover myself with the wig and the hat, and I would wear the glittery jacket, and then I would take it off, and it'd be like. So then for Halloween, I wanted to step it up a little bit, and a buddy of mine that used to work in Lacage, God rest his soul, Lane Lassiter, he did the Michael Jackson in Frank Marino's Lacage. I don't know if you ever remember that show.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught me the tricks of the trade with the makeup. And I did it one night, and I won a massive prize. I think it was 20K at the MGM Grand for dressing up like Michael Jackson. So I would do it every Halloween. And then I would start getting people calling me, say, hey, my son's birthday is on this. Can you come and do it? And I had mastered the makeup in a sense to where I completely changed the way that I looked. People wouldn't know that it was me. I mean, you guys that are listening or watching right now would I think, what are you talking about?
It's remarkable, the transition.
Yeah. And so it was just And it was remarkable for me too, because once I had learned how to do the makeup and I had the outfits and everything, I would look at myself in the mirror and just go, wow, what the heck is this? And I would freak people out everywhere.
The first time I saw you truly dressed up as, I knew you did the Michael Jackson thing, but this was back when I was with the radio station. We were doing something where it was called DJing with the Las Vegas Stars, and you were one of these celebrities competing. It was like a talent show we were doing, and I knew you were coming in, but you came in as Michael Jackson, and I remember you like walking down the hallway, and me thinking to myself, I'm like, I am like 90% sure that's Marcus. There's still like 10% of me like, hey, are you Marcus? Because it was just remarkable. Like you would fool people. It was spot on. Halloween, you were competing every year. Were you winning money every year doing Michael Jackson?
Yep, every year. Every year I would either come first or in the top three. Um, and then actually getting to meet and hang out with Michael was something that I remember I would pray as a little kid, God, please let me meet Michael Jackson. Now, people say that's just like a kid fantasizing. However, I believe it's the beginning of manifestation. You start, and I would fantasize in my head about me meeting him and hanging out with him. And it came into fruition back in 2006. I was very fortunate to get to hang out with Michael and his kids and a bunch of kids from the Make a Wish Foundation at the Tournament of the King show at the Excalibur, where he actually called me over to come and sit at his table, and I got to spend an hour and a half with him. And he autographed my shirt, and we took a bunch of pictures together and had some amazing conversations and had a lot of laughs. And it was just one of the best experiences of my life. And from that on, I got to meet so many of my heroes, whether it was Kiss or Mike Tyson, and becoming friends with Conor McGregor. So without coming to America, none of that would have happened for me. It would have, just a kid from Australia, getting to hang out with the King of Pop, and not only hanging out with him, but talking to him all night, and sitting right next to him, and him saying, "Come over here and sit here, don't stand up." And it was just amazing.
Were you dressed up when you met Michael, or you're normal?
Completely as myself.
Was he into Tournament of the Kings? Was he doing the huzzah and everything? Was Michael into Tournament of the Kings? That's fantastic.
Isn't it?
You
Yeah.
mentioned Conor McGregor, and then I didn't recognize you as Michael Jackson, but I knew you were doing the Conor McGregor thing, and I started following your journey with that. But when did you start being a tribute artist for Conor McGregor? Because when you get in Conor mode, you literally fooled our sports department here at Channel 8. There was a big Conor fight. This was maybe 2018. And there's a big Conor fight. I remember I had you come down dressed as Conor McGregor, didn't tell anyone. And we're having a debate for Las Vegas now. It was myself and the co-host Courtney at the time about who would win the fight. And she picked Conor's opponent. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I picked the man himself. And I remember you walked in on camera and everyone was like, Conor McGregor. And then our sports department came down, like, can we talk to him? I'm like, I felt so bad. I'm like, it's not really him, because you fooled everyone in the building.
So I would fool when I would go to the UFC events. It got so crazy where I had to have my own security with me, and that just goes to show you the extent of Conor's celebrity, that his lookalike had to have security because people would go absolutely crazy. It started the same kind of thing at Halloween. And when I saw the reaction that I had from doing that, and trust me, doing Conor was a lot easier than doing Michael, because Michael was 2 hours of makeup. Conor was just a pair of sunglasses and a suit and the
Yeah,
same
the
thing.
look, the built, and everything. Yeah.
So it was crazy. Like it was scary at a lot of times, because when you're getting bum rushed by 1,000 people thinking that you're Conor, and everyone thought I was, even when I wasn't doing Conor, people still thought I was Conor. Even Conor thought I was Conor.
I've seen the videos of you two together. They're great.
So what had happened was, I would start doing my Conor bit, and I would rock up to his opponent's autograph signings dressed as Conor. I don't like to use the word prank. I like to use the word just to kind of stun them. And I did it with Floyd Mayweather. I did it with Nate Diaz. I did it with a bunch of his different opponents, and a lot of those videos went viral. I think up around 10 million views on a couple of them, and it got the attention of Conor and his team. And that's kind of how my progression of my relationship with Conor McGregor started. The UFC used me for a couple of shots in their videos from the side. I was on a lot of publications and, just a bunch of stuff. And I would do media interviews all the time. And, fans would freak out. Now, you do get a lot of hate with that as well. You really do get a lot of hate. People
The
don't
Connor
like,
haters.
yeah, people don't like lookalikes. Why they don't understand that it's entertainment, and they don't understand that I come from an entertainment background. I never thought I was Connor. I never said that I was Connor. I mean, I would be in the grocery store, and a dad would come up to me and say, "Excuse me, Connor," with a magazine. "Excuse me, Connor. My son is a huge fan. Would you be able to sign an autograph for him?" So many times I would feel so bad that I would just be like, "Yeah, yeah, sure," and I would just sign it because I didn't want to break their heart, but people literally thought I was him everywhere I go. Like my girl would say to me, there's 20 people following us. I'd go down to the outlet mall, so there's 20 people following us with their cameras out. And it happened every day, every single day, to where I lost my identity a little bit again. I felt that I had to portray this character on the daily because I wanted to make people happy, I suppose, because you know what it's like when you see a celebrity that you love, people freak
Yes.
out. People thought I was him. We're the same build. We're pretty much the same height. We kind of have the same, I don't have the cauliflower ears or anything like that, but, you know, with the sunglasses on and the haircut, we look exactly the same.
And then when when he would put his suit on, when you were trying to be Connor, it was just next level. I felt. Did you do something with Mike Tyson? Didn't Tyson think you were Conor McGregor?
He did, man. He really did. And that was so sweet and so endearing. And, he tried to bite me on the ear as he actually did. He put me in a headlock and tried to bite me on
Did he
the ear.
really?
Yeah, he did. He's like, do you want me to sign your boxing glove for you? And I was like, yeah, yeah. Can you sign? He goes, what, to Connor? I was like, no, it's to Marcus. And he's like, okay. How do you spell that? And I said, you spell it Marcus. And then I go to him, from Mike, Mik. And he looked at me and he grabbed me around the neck. And it was a great moment. So yeah, I've seen Mike a few times, and he knows who I am now. And he's another great guy and another one of my heroes.
Yeah. Refresh my memory here. I don't know if you and I talked about doing this, or if you did it, or we did do it. It was many years ago, back in the Connor height. WWE was coming to town. They were putting on a show. Were you and I talking? I was sitting ringside with some listeners from the radio station. Were you and I talking about you doing a bit with like walking up with the belt and standing ringside, or did that actually happen?
Didn't happen, but we did discuss it. And I tweeted Hulk Hogan and I said, Hulkster, if I rock up to the WWE like this, you think I'm going to be okay? And he tweeted back, brother, you're going to scare the whole roster.
That's what it was. Yes, and I think we just kind of figured it'd be too pandemonium of Conor McGregor walking into a Monday Night Raw. We know if the fans would have known, the fans would think, "Oh my gosh, we're in Las Vegas," and you had the belt too to walk down and think that Conor McGregor was here. It's like it would have gone just bonkers if we did that.
Well,
I guess.
that's what I used to do at the UFC. And people would be like, why is Connor sitting in the cheap seats? And so,
But they would still think it's you. They would still, because I would see the videos. Your girlfriend would be filming you walking into your seats, and people would be like, and then I'm thinking, if I'm in the crowd and Connor's fighting tonight, why would he be sitting in the stands watching the other fights? But they still thought it was Connor.
they don't get it. And especially when I'd have like 5 security with me and a whole bunch of people around me and people taking photos, and it was insane. And like even when I did a UFC fan event and I rocked up there, the people at the front door thought I was Connor, and they took me into the back area where all the fighters were and gave me food and drinks. And that was one of a viral moment where I got to meet everybody. And everyone's like, hang on a second, Conor McGregor, Australia, like what? It was great. Yeah.
But now you and Dana White are kind of buddies, right?
Yeah, man. So I suppose, transitioning into it all started with the Connor thing, believe it or not. And that's how I got to know all the coaches and all of his teammates. And a lot of the fighters would recognize me and know who I was, which gave me the opportunity to be able to when I started doing my podcast, which is back in COVID, I just did it from home like this, to reach out to these people. Hey, this is Marcus. I'm the guy that used to do Connor. And, can I do an interview? And that's how it started. And then it just steamrolled after that.
Were you a big UFC fan prior to that? Because in my mind now, with their podcast, and I see all the guys you talk to, and the guys that you're posting pictures with and videos with, were you always a UFC fan, or did that kind of start post pandemic, where you started to fall in love with that sport?
Now, the first UFC fight I went to was in 2008, UFC 54 at the Mandalay Bay, Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell. But I was following it for years before that. But the more I kind of started interviewing them, the more. But I've always been a huge fan. I've always been a fan of combat sports, like the Bruce Lee movies, Rocky movies. I always loved that. And then it kind of progressed into boxing. My uncle would show me the boxing, and then UFC just became part of my life. Yeah.
And then, so you talked earlier about leaving Thunder and that's you kind of losing your identity. When did the podcast start? And did that podcast kind of help you refine your identity and reinvent yourself?
Yes, because that's exactly what it did. It helped me reinvent myself because the similar feelings that I would get on stage doing Thunder was kind of similar to what I would get when I was sitting across from one of the fighters that I idolized. It was a different concept and a different thing altogether. However, the feeling was very, very similar. So I wanted to do more of it. I wanted to get more professional. I wanted to learn more about it because no one showed me anything. No one taught me how to do any of that podcast stuff. You know what I mean? I just was thrown in there and had to learn myself. But the quality of guests that I would get are all high profile. And so that kind of helped me so much in the transition from Aussie male host of Thunder into, the Aussie guy that interviews all the people from the UFC.
And how many episodes of the podcast now?
150.
Really? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
number 30 on Spotify. Number 6 for BKFC. And now it's sprawled into live events. So now I'm doing some ring announcing for Mike Perry's Dirty Boxing event, which was, I'd never done that before. It was one of the first times I'd hopped on the mics in Thunder, and everyone was there. John Jones, Mike Perry, the Island Boys, a bunch of UFC stars, a bunch of NBA players, Patrick Best from the Patrick Best podcast, and all these people. So now it's expanded into that, and now I do a little bit of work with the BKFC, and I go and do some media work at the events. I do a lot of stuff with Power Slap now. I interview all those guys. I'm doing media for that next Saturday. So it's kind of branched out from sitting at home during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
doing like this, to being in the studio, doing live events, and actually becoming friends with these guys. You know what I mean? Becoming friends with Connor now, promoting his brands and helping him out, and using his beer in my hot sauce, that's his beer right there.
Was it really?
Yeah. So we used his Four Jar Stout in one of my hot sauces. So yeah, it's kind of, and it's taken a while, man. I'm like 4.5 years into this, and I'm still scratching the surface of becoming what I want to do. But it's fun, and I love it.
I had, Brett Raymer from Tanked. He was on here, and we were talking about his show, Tanked, and he had the concept of it and put it together and shot a sizzle reel and was pitching it and pitching and pitching it. And he was telling me something when it comes to like an idea, like a show or something big, it takes at least 3 years for it to take off. It's not, I mean, it's a rarity where it's an overnight success, but it's gonna be at least 3 years of out there pitching it, tweaking things, talking to people. And just when you're thinking about giving up on it, that's when you should not. That's when you should go all in on that dream or that show or that vision of yours. During the pandemic, what was that like for you guys? Here you are selling out every night at the Excalibur, Thunder from Down Under, huge momentum. And all of a sudden, the world just stops. What was that like for you guys?
I'm not going to lie, because I didn't have to go to work every single night, and I could just, for once in 20 so years or whatever it was, just chill out and not do anything. So there was a positive for it because I got to relax. I got to start the podcast, but not earning any money was a big shock because, what it's like getting that nice paycheck every 2 weeks, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it stops. And it was hard, man, because I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't see our friends or whatever. But it had advantages, but it's disadvantages, and it was tough. In a sense, it was a blessing in disguise because I never thought I was going to stop doing Thunder until I stopped doing Thunder and realized it was time for me to stop doing Thunder.
It's weird how the universe works in that way. When the universe makes, you're thinking something. I can't get into too much on my end, but you're thinking something, and then the universe says, "Okay, we'll make that decision for you. Now go, pursue something else." It's wild how that works. Were you there with the show when it started back up, or did you break off before the show returned after lockdown?
I never went back once COVID had
No,
finished.
really.
Yeah. that was it. I was done. Just because after having that break, and I realized that, my time was done. I was
Mhm.
getting older, and I I had achieved everything that I wanted to achieve. I shot more calendars than anybody. I'd been on the billboards. I'd done everything that I needed to do. And a lot of my friends had left. A lot of the original guys that were in the show weren't there anymore. It was a whole new brood of young guys. And my passion and focus became the podcast. So, COVID was a little blessing for me. I'm not going to lie. I know that's kind of weird to say, and people are going to say you're crazy, but it really was. It was a blessing until I caught it, but it was a blessing for me. It nailed me, man.
Oh, that's right. I remember you were in a bad way, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. I was in a real bad way. Like, uh, I think 35 days I was bedridden from it. It really hit me
Yeah.
hard. Yeah,
What
yeah.
was the you mentioned boxing. I remember at one point you were going to do a celebrity boxing tournament or fight. What was that whole thing about?
So they had, well, celebrity boxing. It's a great little organization, and they wanted to capitalize on the Conor McGregor look, and they wanted me to fight the Jake Paul lookalike.
Okay.
So went into, and I signed the contract. I was like, yeah, it was going to be in Miami, and it was going to be a big thing, shot on Triller TV. And so I went into training, and I was training really hard, and I was getting really good. 6 weeks into my camp, I ruptured my Achilles.
Hmm.
Total snap,
Oh
snap like a rubber band crack.
no! How'd that feel?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most painful things I've ever gone through. See the reaction that you're having right
Yeah,
now, just me
yeah.
talking
Just
about it.
saying it, I'm like,
Because you can actually hear it. Because the Achilles tendon is one of the toughest ones in the body. So for it to snap, it wasn't used to me skipping every day, and just the different kind of movement that you do with boxing and pivoting and stepping back. And I think maybe 20 years as a performer and a dancer weakened it a little bit. And
yeah.
yeah, just one day in training, I just stepped back, and then my leg went from underneath me and sounded like that. And I was out. I was done.
Okay.
My boxing career was over before it even
that was
started.
that was the
And my
universe
mother
step.
was very happy about that, by the way.
That's the universe stepping in again, saying, put you down this different path now. This is fun for now, but no, we're not doing this. You're I love following you on social media to see the people that you talk to and everything, but I feel like were you feuding with a UFC fighter or MMA fighter over something recently about doing your podcast? Or can you not talk about this? I felt like you posted about something. He wanted $10,000 to come on your podcast.
So there's a
And if you
alpha
if you
male
if you
wannabe.
can't talk
No, I
about it,
can talk about
okay.
it. Oh, I can talk about it. I'm not scared. There's an alpha male wannabe, and you guys have maybe heard of him. His name is Wes Watson. He's a bald-headed, tatted up, juiced up, very angry man that would he would you would pay for like programs, and he would teach you how to be in business and this and that.
Like a
Kind of,
life coach, like a life coach kind of guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
that guy. And so he actually came out with a lot of controversial comments about UFC fighters, calling them a lot of names and the P word, and you guys are squares and you don't know how to fight, and I'd nail you all out, I'd take you all out, and you guys are nothing. And I thought, okay, here's a little bit of a chance for me to capitalize on this. So I reached out to him and said, hey, can I get you to Vegas? I'll get you out here. We'll get in the studio, and you can talk about these controversial things that you've been saying about these UFC fighters. And he wanted $10,000 for the interview and wanted me to go to Miami to do it. I've never paid for anyone to come on my show, and
Yeah.
as you know, JC, as a podcaster, you don't make a lot of money. It takes a long time before you do, and there's no way I would have made $10,000 out of monetization from a clip from this guy. My intention was to bring him out here, get him in the studio, and then have a couple of my UFC buddies come in and maybe have a bit of a conversation with him about his comments.
Yeah.
He didn't want any part of it, and yeah, so that was pretty much that. But you know, you you gotta put your money where your mouth is sometimes. If you're gonna come out and say these kind of things about these guys, and if you've ever been to the UFC or if you've ever talked to one of them, they're a different breed of human being. They're like 1% of the people in the earth. These
Mhm.
guys train so hard they can take punishment. They work at it every day. It's not just a weekend thing. So I think it's kind of disrespectful for this guy to come in and talk about these guys like that, considering he's never done it.
Yeah.
His claim to fame was he went to prison, he came out, made a lot of money. Sorry, I
You're
apologize.
fine.
I swear. Made a lot of money, and you know, tried to act tough by saying this kind of thing. And I wanted to call him out on it. I would have done it in a professional way. However, he didn't want any part of it. So that's
It
how it
shows
goes.
the true character of the person. Marcus, man,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for spending the past hour with us, chatting about your life, your career, and I think your story really is remarkable. I value our friendship, and you to invent yourself the way you have, and just continue to reinvent yourself. It's inspiring. I really think you should look into doing that book with your Tales from Thunder from Down Under and everything else. I think it'd be a great book.
JC, I've known you for a long time. You've always been a class act. You've been a professional from day one, and I've seen how you've also evolved in your career. And I'm so proud of what you're doing. And I see you on TV every day, and now you've got this great show. And I value our friendship as well. Your wife is born on the same day as I am, on the
That's right.
26th.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's
That's right.
right.
See? And I love that you have horses and stuff like that. And you're a great guy, and I know we'll be friends to the end. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, mate, you've got my number.
I love it. And a closing note, I borrowed for the New Year's Eve show on Channel 8, I borrowed one of your Michael Jackson outfits. I still have it. I got to get it back to you.
It's okay. Whenever, buddy. I'll have you wearing it again soon
My
enough.
wife loves it when I wear it, so I just wear it all the time. Marcus, thank you so much, buddy. That was perfect. Thank you.